To NTV News First Edition, it is a topic that's made national headlines. It's garnered the interest of the Premier and has flooded social media. Of course, the hockey handshake. Hockey NL has banned the post-game handshake because of incidents and altercations with players and coaches. The handshake now happens before the game, but sportsmanship, many say, has suffered. Dr. Janine Hubbard joins me now with this week's edition of Get Psyched with Dr. Janine. So, Dr. Janine, the post-game handshake, it's meant to, I guess, clean the slate. It's a chance to reconcile and say, good game, and a chance to leave any kind of anxiety, anger, maybe, on the ice. So what do you think of this decision by Hockey NL?
I have to say, from a developmental psychology perspective, and I will say I'm speaking from my own perspective here as well, I think it's a terrible decision. There are so many reasons why, when there's a problem, avoiding it makes the problem so much worse, because we don't get a chance to address it. We don't get a chance to learn and model. It's kind of analogous to, we've talked before about someone who wants to take their kid's cell phone away and never let them have social media because they made a couple of errors on social media. No, we do the opposite. We have very clear consequences that are established ahead of time for misbehavior, which could include not being allowed to play, don't get me wrong. But it's clear ahead of time, the expectations are there. You can have people sign contracts, whatever it involves. But then it's a discussion about how do we cope with frustration tolerance, with anger management, with emotion regulation, with being a good sport. All of these are such essential skills. Do we want our young adults, and in particular our young men growing up, not having developed these skills? I don't.
But what do you say to people that say, okay, but I mean, you can talk about things that happen in the classroom as well if you want to bring all this into the story. But there are people that are going to say, we've tried. We've spoken to these players numerous times. We've spoken to the caregivers of these parents numerous times. Nothing has changed. And it's just, we've had enough, and this is our solution.
Well, my question then is, something like hockey is extracurricular. Extracurricular activities are supposed to encourage skills and competencies in many areas beyond athletics. And it is a right, it is a privilege, not a right. But let's take it back. I would love to see, outside of the games, during practice, maybe separate to practice, the teams receiving some training, explicit training and instruction around, well, how do you give a compliment? How do you cope with the disappointment? Again, skills in terms of that emotion regulation piece of things. When kids are really little, maybe you have 5 minutes before they go back out on the ice, and the coach helps the kids with, here's something you could say that's really complimentary. I know you're disappointed, and you can say, you know what, I'm bummed, but good game, or I really liked the way you tried, or to help teach some coping strategies and also help do some mood regulation before they go back in for that handshake. Because again, this is hockey, but we're also talking about broader lifelong skills, and we know that just avoiding them as opposed to learning how to address them is never the solution.
So what does it mean then for the other players? This has happened now because of maybe a few, could have been all of them, but maybe it's just one or two players that aren't kind of following the rules. What happens when you set down this kind of blanket solution? How do the other players feel?
Well, that's just it. It's a one-size-all solution, which isn't appropriate. And don't get me wrong, there are a number of conditions out there, things like ADHD, that can cause impulsive off-the-cuff comments or issues to come out. Well, then maybe that's something that we help those players with outside of the game. Maybe there are one or two players that, if they've been good sports during the game, are allowed to be recused from that line or find another way to acknowledge the, hey, good game. But working with those specific individuals, and again, if they're not willing to follow the same behavioral contract that the rest of the team is, that's a penalty on the rest of the team, and that's not fair.
Dr. Hubbard, we are out of time, but thank you so much for this.
Thank you.